the show in a minute.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a good one right here today.
Is there Jacobus?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. How you doing, little man?
Why do you have that?
I'm all right?
doing great.
Oh, that's good to hear, man. Awesome. Awesome.
Is that your symbol?
Yes, sir. With the cross and the prayer hands.
Two hands, the two praying hands.
Yes, sir. That's the symbol.
All right, we are live.
Okay.
Oh man, welcome back to another episode of Paradigm Shift TV 314. As y'all know, today I got my brother Robert Ash in the building, and y'all already know him from being on the show, but he haven't officially gave his interview like we do everybody else, man. So today we felt like this would be a good time for my brother to have his interview. We're gonna go into his past, we're gonna go into the teen years, the 20s, and everything, and find out how did he become not only the man that he is today, but the man of God that he is today. And without further ado, my brother, I just want you to reintroduce yourself to the platform, and then we'll jump into it after that. How you doing today?
Just fine, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah, and I'm again Robert Ash to anyone that doesn't know me, and I'm minister, co-pastor of Euphrates Missionary Baptist Church in Oakland, California. Been a minister for a long time, and just here to share whatever I can. I really do appreciate being part of the Paradigm Shift family. It's a unique environment where people can actually share from different traditions and overall respect one another. There's always going to be problems, but basically it's a very thoughtful community, and it's really been a good introduction to the conscious community and to other traditions inside the Black community that hadn't touched on much more before, being part of the church community and other communities in the Black community.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. Well, you know what you're here for today, my brother. We want to get some background on you, dig into your past a little bit. We're gonna have some people in the chat. So for the people in the chat, if y'all can get y'all questions ready, but hold your questions after Brother Robert gets through giving his interview and his testimony and speaking on things that he want to speak on. We will allow y'all to ask questions. Y'all can ask them in the chat, or y'all can come on the show and ask them in person. It's up to Brother Robert what questions he want to take, what questions he don't. And, we're just going to run it real respectfully and, keep it real professional on tonight. Well, Brother Robert Ash, just to jump you off, let's see, let's kind of get into the adolescent years, the way that you was raised and things like that, and your mindset at that time, kind of leading into your teen years. And then once we get there, we'll segue from there and get into some more. So if you can, just let us know, how you was raised, and what your mind was like at that time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we came up in an Army family. My dad was in the Army, and was born in Germany, came to the United States, when I was young. And then my family was really a normal, average, working class family. My dad was enlisted man in the Army, and they were both nominally religious. My dad was a Baptist, mom was a Catholic, and we didn't really go to church or anything. So I did go to church with my grandmother when I was very little back in Germany. She was Catholic. But other than that, we really didn't go to church actively, didn't really talk about the Bible or God or the church very much at all. We just lived a regular, ordinary life. So I grew up, ended up moving with my family into the Bible Belt, heard all about, Jesus Christ, the Bible, and so forth from other people that lived in the community. It was just part of the fabric that was there, and didn't really respond one way or another. And then what happened was that when I was about 13.
Not to cut your wisdom real quick, brother. So you're originally from Germany?
I was born there.
You were born in Germany, okay.
Yeah, I was born in Germany, came to the United States when I was a small child, about 4 years old. Okay. And so from there, we traveled all over the place, all over the US, as my dad got restationed. And then I really didn't I mean, I did things like when I was in 6th grade, went to a vacation Bible school on camp. That was about a week or two at night. And that's really about it. You know, just other than that, just talk to kids, lived a normal kid life. When I was 13, I had a pretty remarkable, really defining experience, which was that I had a dream, woke up, and I had this extremely pressing feeling, you know, to accept Jesus Christ as my Savior. And I had, uh, it was overwhelming. And you know, obviously, I'd heard about it because we lived in the Bible Belt at that time in the Midwest. But I ended up resisting because there was this kind of voice in my head. It was a wrong voice, but it said that, you know, no, if you accept Jesus Christ, you know, then anytime, you know, any sin you do after that, you're going to go to hell. So I pushed and resisted and didn't do it. It was a defining moment because at that time I went onto a completely different path. And very soon afterwards started getting involved in like occult stuff, atheism, and, you know, even doing things like, you know, having games, trance games with other kids my age, uh, little ceremonies that we did, started running, you know, doing these things, running across different materials, uh, and eventually quickly got involved in like astrology, witchcraft, became an enemy of Jesus Christ. I hated Christians at that point. I despised them. I thought they were stupid. I thought they were useless, and I would insult Christians and talk about them and do everything I could to be contrary and negative. Anytime somebody told me about or said anything about the Bible, about Jesus Christ, about the church, as a true enemy. And that continued into my teen years. It got to where I was doing things, you know, like I tried all kinds of different stuff, you know, transcendental meditation and even tarot cards. I had some pretty unsettling experiences. Like some things were, started doing things where people would pay me to like tell their fortunes or cast spells on people and stuff like that, which they seemed to think I had some kind of effectiveness as they saw it. They would pay me for readings and things. And one time I actually went in when I was a young adult, was invited by a teacher into a school to do palm readings because I told him I had done that sort of thing. He never should have done that, and that she should have been fired. But I did it, and these kids were, you know, all doubt. And I said, "Who's, you know, doubts it?" And they put their hand up. I did these readings, and at the end of the thing, at the end of all of them, everybody was quiet as a. You could hear a spider, you know, crawl up the wall. So those types of experiences, people seem to, you know, feel that I had some kind of something there that was very negative. My own brother said that he never prayed before, and I gave him a tarot card reading, and he said, "I never prayed before, but after that, I just prayed and asked God to get you out of that stuff." There were people that said they saw demons in my eyes. You know, I had these types of experiences like floating out of my body feelings and that sort of thing. And there were other people who seemed to think that there was something genuine there, who were attracted to that kind of occult evil. And so what happened at that point, after that, those were my late teen years, like in about 1920s. And then some way there was a parallel path happening because I had said, for instance, that I didn't believe in God. There's no God, right? And so right after that, God started showing me things. I mean, I see that in retrospect, but these things started happening and they were small in my life. I can't even tell you what they were, but I would look at these things and say, you know, this doesn't seem like coincidence to me. And so I kind of took that off the table fairly early on, but I was actually an atheist for a short time. After that, there were these objections that I'd had to the Bible, and I would meet people that would answer them. And then finally, my last objection was that, you know, this original one, which I'll get to in a minute. But what happened was I was so into this, you know, astrology and tarot cards, I used to carry a pack of them around in my shirt pocket and do readings through the day, either for me or others or whatever. And then somehow I decided, that I wanted to seek all the world's wisdom, and I wanted to read all these different books, like the Bible, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, and all of that. That was on my list back at that time. So a friend of mine, we were, this was back, moving from here back to Kansas City for a while. A friend of mine pointed out, he wasn't really a Christian, but he said, look, you can't have a pack of tarot cards and carry a Bible around at the same time. Now, he wasn't really his business, and I felt I could, but then for some reason that touched me. I took the cards out of my pocket, threw them in a trash can. We were walking down the street, so I threw them in a trash can and never looked back. After that, we were at his friend's house, and I had one remaining question, which was that I thought that if I ever sinned after becoming a Christian, that I would be forever condemned. And he had a friend that was a minister who I told that to, because he was trying to witness to me. And then I told him that, and he said, no, he said, look, the blood of Jesus Christ covers all sins. It forgives all sins. You're going to sin afterwards. It's not, nobody's perfect even after accepting the Lord, but the blood of Jesus Christ covers even that. So that was my last objection. And I didn't even know, really, I had a list of objections at first, but I didn't even keep track of them. But it turned out that was my last one. And so later on that night, I repented of my sins and asked Jesus Christ to come into my heart and forgive me and be my savior. And he did. I mean, for me, I didn't really, and then I woke up the next day and I went to sleep, right? I had kind of this peaceful feeling and went to sleep. And then the next day I woke up and said, well, I'm feeling different. I thought I was supposed to go out and walk on water or something and go or do, have some spectacular, fire, work experience. And it wasn't, it was just calm. And I said, well, if God, if this is from God, he'll say, he'll show it. And even just thinking like that showed that I had been transformed, because I never thought like that ever. So that is up to my experience. If you want to say anything now, you can, or make any comments. Otherwise, I can continue.
Back when you was doing the tarot card readings, I believe in, spirits and, like voodoo and just different things like that. I think that the underworld has powers and things like that. Just my personal opinion. Would you say that tarot card readings are legit or true, or like, people could actually do things with them that are based in reality? Or do you think it's all, like skepticism or whatever,
It depends on the person, and it depends, and it's kind of hit and miss, where, so I'm into sort of like, proving things in a way, and independent, I wouldn't be saying these things if there weren't really independent corroboration from other people. So it was other people telling me that they saw these things as effective. I don't want to say good or anything, because it wasn't good, but that there was something there to it that was a lot more than just flipping over some pieces of cardboard and saying random stuff that doesn't make a difference. So in some cases that is true. Most of it, in my opinion, most of it in my experience as well, is fake. It's phony. But there is a core of it that can be real. And it can be real either from time to time with the same people, or it can be real, like somebody can have a demonic influence in their life that will allow them to do certain things. Now, Satan's power or demonic power is always limited. So for instance, in the Exodus, like they were able to match it, like the first three signs, right? The serpent, turning to a staff, the frogs, and the blood. But after that, their power was limited, and they couldn't do the lice and and all of that. So there is a limit to it, but within that limit, it can sometimes be very powerful. But it's not. But most of it really is fake. Like I don't believe in like a lot of these haunted houses and things like that.
Okay.
And most astrology is just, most stuff like palm reading and astrology, most of that stuff is really psychology. Like you can read people and tell what they want to hear. It's called soothsaying in the Bible, where you tell them things that they want to hear anyway, and they say, oh yeah, right. And and then, but there's some times where certain people can do some things like that, that goes beyond that.
I like what you said of how like it's based on the individual. It's sort of like horoscopes. Horoscopes put everybody in one box, and you can read a horoscope and be like, okay, well that's me. Okay, well that's me. But then it's some stuff in there that's just totally off. Like, and then it definitely don't fit every person who was probably born in that month. You know how they say like this sign is smart, or this sign works hard, or this sign is, it's just different things. But you can meet people of those signs who probably fit that criteria, and then you can meet some who nothing like what the horoscope says. So I want to point that out. So once you became an adult, a young adult, and you did find Christ, and you started studying more, and started getting into the Bible more. Take us from there, from when you started getting into Christ, and like how did you know that you wasn't following, let's say, like Jehovah's Witness, or one of the false denominations that's out there? What led you to be comfortable in the message that you was hearing and the teaching that you was getting, that it was the real message and the real teaching?
Well, one, there were a couple things, right? Eventually, what happens is that it's a faith followed by evidence, right? So I grew up in the Bible Belt, right? Everybody there is like either Baptist or Pentecostal or Methodist or whatever. So they know the core teachings of Jesus Christ, and I knew that much. Another thing is that God had put in my heart when I first received him that night, two things that he told me. One, to go see my parents, but the first thing was to read the Bible from cover to cover, right? So I started reading the Bible from cover to cover. I've been through it like over 17 times now. I'm on the 17th time through. But but basically, and what that did was it focused me on what was on the page, right? And so that's the way that I've built, tried at least to build my Christian ministry and my Christian life, is to focus on what's on the page. And that is irrespective of denomination, irrespective of schools of thought on different verses, irrespective of whatever religion or non-religion people have. There's there are these words on the page, and these words are written in English, and there's English syntax and grammar, and they mean certain things. And so what I did was first to focus on that. The next step was, after joining a church, it took me about a year to join a church. I was kind of laggard in that way. But I went to different churches and finally went to one. Most of them were like Baptist churches, but I wound up in a Baptist church. And one of the things that I did was just continue reading. Started reading a lot of outside, material, but also focusing heavily first on doctrine. I wanted to understand, core doctrines, and I started with that. The pastor gave me a book. He recommended a book. It was Pendleton's Doctrines. I started with there, and then ended up studying other books and doctrine, but it really always focused back on the words on the page. I think I learned about this later, about the way the Bible is written. But the thing that I assumed from the beginning, and it turns out to be the case, is that it's written either like between a history book and a letter, right? A letter to a friend, right? And so you don't look for these hidden meanings. You don't, try to turn it and say, that there's some kind of a connection here that really isn't. You don't go beyond like the grammar of the page, and that was the foundation. And so what happened was that the things, and then also through testing, looking at different sources, believing sources, unbelieving sources, and being able to kind of test and see where everything fell, and try to really approach it that way. Just one of the things that happened early on, well, not kind of after a few years, is when I went to college, there was a guy, on the radio called Walter Martin. He's a famous apologist. I thought that was cool. And one of the things that he said on his show in terms of this, he said, somebody asked him how to be an apologist, and he said, "Look, learn the Bible. Learn the truth." He said that, he learned the truth. Learn the Bible, what's in there actually there. the way that they train treasury agents, he said, and my wife worked at a bank, so she validated this, is that they don't train them on a whole bunch of counterfeits. What they do is they train them on real bills so that they know every single, spot of ink on a real dollar bill, which way the eyes face, what kind of fonts they use, what color the ink is, what the paper feels like. And so anything that deviates from that is suspicious, right? And that's sort of the approach. That's the core approach that I've tried, that I've adopted for my life. And so I try to be independent, really, of denomination for the most part, and really focus on what's on the page. Another thing, if I can, I don't want to ramble on too much, but another thing is that this kind of got forced when I was in college. I was at Berkeley, and one day there was a guy that I was talking to who was a non-believer, and he brought up something rather awkward and embarrassing and negative about the church. And it turned out that it was a fact, it was true. So at that point, I had a decision to make, and I still remember this as clear as I'm sitting here. Either I could, you know, acknowledge this uncomfortable fact, not knowing what to do next, or I could try to gloss over it, deny it, and lose this credibility of a clearly intelligent guy who would know I was full of it and wouldn't trust me or, again. And so I chose the first path and said, hey, yep, you're right. I mean, it's, I don't remember what the conversation went after that, but I do remember that he had sort of like his guard came down a bit because he was surprised that I had acknowledged that. Right. And it was an awkward thing. It was something, it was really bad that churches had done. And so then after that laid a foundation for when I was in technology. I worked my career in technology. And that was where I ended up becoming sort of an informal leader of a several hundred person global email list. It was called Christians, but it really had everybody on there. It had believers, non-believers. It had, Catholics, Protestants, atheists, Hindus, Mormons, cult leaders, gay and straight people. I mean, you name it, male and chauvinists and feminists. It had every imaginable, well, not every imaginable, but it had a huge range of different opinions, and they were fighting like cats and dogs all the time. One of the emails were so vicious. One of the emails went to the San Jose Mercury News and got printed. So God had put, I felt like God had put a mission on my heart, a burden on my heart to help calm this down and try to bring peace. And one of the things that I knew that I feel that he was telling me is that the only way to do that was to try to be impartial, objective, and fair. I couldn't be seen. I knew I could not be seen as a sides taker, or they just say that's just this other, Protestant guy, Catholic guy, or this, whatever, and had to do things like tell Christians, that I believed what they believed, but this actually wasn't correct, or it was only partly correct, or this other person who was opposing me or someone else actually had a point, and not try to be in any camp, like with the liberals or conservatives or things like that. And I ended up, it was a 10-year effort, but it ended up happening, and it turned from a dogfight, a cage fight type atmosphere into a place where people could feel respected. And, even if they were wrong, right, whatever, their opinions would be respected and they wouldn't be personally attacked. I mean, there's always some people on a list that big that go that route, but really it was a day and night difference. And the only way to do that was really to try to be fair with everyone. And so that was including myself. And so there were some things that I had believed or felt, opinions that I had, positions that I had, that changed over that time because I could see that they really didn't coincide with the Bible like I thought. And I gained a better appreciation of others. One of the things that were kind of precious to me when I was working at a large technology company for an internship. And one of the guys that I would commute with this fellow, and this guy was the son of a Brahma priest. He was a Hindu, and his father had established the first Hindu temple in the United States in Jamaica, New York. And so, like I said, I was trying to understand other people on their terms. And he told me one day when we were commuting, he said, you're the first Christian I've ever met who truly understands Hinduism. You know, and that to me was a supreme compliment. We didn't agree ideologically, but what I tried to do, you know, was to learn what I could about what he believed accurately and address accurately what he believed instead of addressing him through my preconceptions. And I did have preconceptions prior to actually taking a look at this, you know, this tradition and what it, you know, this religion and what they tend to believe. So that's been sort of my attempt to try to do in terms of my approach to ministry.
Okay. So you said you went to college. What did you go to college for?
Computer science. I studied computer science at Berkeley and MBA at Stanford.
And were you already a Christian by that time?
Yes.
Okay. So what led you from like you said, going from tarot cards and then becoming a believer in Jesus Christ, and then what made you want to become a pastor?
Okay, the first part of that is what made you a believer. It was a calling of God on my life. That's the only way I can explain it. At the time, I didn't even think I was going to do this. I had no idea that was the path I was on. I was consciously on a path completely opposite and wanted to stay there. I had no intention, no desire. I didn't have, like, you know, these kind of conscience in my life that was growing. It was nothing. It turned out pretty sudden, really. And so let's see. And then in terms of becoming a pastor, that was another thing that I didn't want to do. When I went to church, I sat in the back, and then over time, I would, you know, move forward. It was sort of unconscious, but I'd move forward. Then I started going to like Bible studies and things like that. But I absolutely did not want to be a minister, period. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I didn't want to do it. You know, and I was just happy just to be a regular guy sitting in church. What happened was that at one point there was I was reading the Bible, and then there was a verse in Jeremiah that said, "Behold, I put my words in your mouth," and somehow that just leaped out on the page. It didn't say, "Oh yeah, I'm called to the ministry." There was nothing like that. It just sort of stood out for some reason I didn't understand, and so I went to my pastor at the time, and he said, and then I just told him, I said, "Do you know what that means?" Right? And so he didn't answer. And then a couple Sundays later, or the next Sunday or so in Bible study, he had like the head deacon there and like, you know, this committee. And then he just looked at me and he said, "So you think you're called to the ministry, right? So Brother Ash, you think you're called to the ministry?" And this was one of those decisions as well. It's like, I didn't feel like I was called to the ministry, but at the same time, something had made this happen with these people here for this reason. And so I said, well, if I deny it, you know, I had already denied Christ before. I didn't want to repeat that type of experience. And I didn't know whether this was a calling or not, but I didn't want to necessarily take a chance of turning down something again from God. And so I said yes. And then after that, he set me up for what they call a trial sermon, and the rest is history. And I'd sort of, and then I went then that's when I started really studying a lot of, seminary level books, history and things like that. And really most of the materials that I ran into after that were kind of customized to whatever ministry opportunities were ahead of me. And so that's what I started studying theology a lot, doctrine, hermeneutics, and then that led into apologetics and a range of different other things.
That was about to be my next question. I was going to ask. So how did you go from the pulpit to, you and I? Well, I'm pretty sure you probably was doing this before you met me, but coming on with me and other people, and actually defending the word of God, or taking the hard questions. You know, it's some questions in the Bible that's, you know, everybody know the surface questions and you can answer those easily. But you are a brother like myself where we genuinely go get in the trenches, you know, and you know, try to answer the tough questions and the hard questions and deal with the different type of people, all the way from professional and more than respectful all the way down to, you know, straight disrespectful, but you know, just to win a soul. So that was my question. I want to know, how did you go from the pulpit to actually doing apologetics on the level that you and I do it on?
It was it actually found me more than pursuing it. Uh, I always wanted to know the Bible well, to know it thoroughly. And what happened is that, you know, God opened these doors. One of which was at Berkeley. I did a lot of, you know, did a fair amount of witnessing, you know, or at least discussing with people at Berkeley about the Bible. And these people are pretty smart. They read, they understand what they're saying, and they know how to probe for problems. And so I ended up doing a lot of different reading to understand challenges and to see, you know, what was legitimate there, what wasn't. And then also, once I started in technology, soon after, when I got to this company with this list, the number of questions on that list, I was very active for like over a decade, uh, on a huge range of issues. And this had to do everything with racial issues, social issues, theological issues, historical issues, language issues. And there were challenges that came from every direction. And so, you know, moral issues, I mean, social, you name it, and doctrinal issues, different denominations, different you know, religions, faiths and lack thereof. And so it was a wide range of reading that I had to do. The thing that and study, and it was battle tested, because these were people who actually knew their fields. They knew the topics they were talking about. They knew their opinions. They had, you know, studied, and so it had to be you know, thorough, and it had to be accurate, or they could have taken me apart. And so it was a, you know, and the thing that really blew me away, frankly, is that I would run into these articles and sources and books and so forth, and read them, you know, learn these things, you know, do a little extra research, but learn these things. And then these questions would come up on the forum from hundreds of people like around the world, and I'd be ready for them. And it was just, to me, it was amazing, you know, but that's the way it worked out. And I ended up, you know, having, like, you know, these debates with seminarians across the country, you know, on, you know, public debates on the email list and that kind of thing. Did very well. And so it was really sort of customized to whatever, you know, was coming up. Now, recently, joining, like, you know, being more introduced by you, by Jerome, and you especially, you know, into the conscious community, uh, there's been a number of challenges that most of it I'd seen before, but there were other challenges that I really hadn't seen before, and had to do new research, uh, do new studies, and looking at things. And you know, I've learned some things there. I've, you know, hopefully have shared some things that have been beneficial to people. But that's really, it's an ongoing learning process, and trying to kind of figure out or understand what direction and where my gaps are, and try to figure out the gaps that I need to fill in order to fulfill the ministry that I have, and also to credibly address the people that I have discussions with, you know, whatever their, you know, point of view on things.
Okay. Y'all in the audience, y'all get y'all questions ready. We're about to drop the link in just a little bit. Y'all get y'all questions ready, and be looking forward to that link being dropped in the chat in just a little bit. So I also want to ask you, in doing Christian apologetics, as pertaining to the conscious community, what are some of your favorite subjects that you like to talk with others about, or is it more of a you just wait until the question comes to give your expertise, for lack of a better term, on that subject, or are there particular subjects that you feel that are top on your list that you'd like to discuss over others?
It's a little bit of both. I do enjoy discussing, the Bible, the integrity of the Bible. It's, there's obviously some challenges that come up, in the community because of that. The contribution of the Bible and Christianity toward the Black community, Black progress, and progress for humanity overall, frankly, despite some of the really serious bad things that have been done, and in the name, allegedly, sometimes in the name and sometimes allegedly in the name of Christianity. And it's like science stuff. I mean, I don't really, I guess, have one preference besides those.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up what's going on in the Black community. Of course, like I know, that the Bible is for everybody. It's not racism or any of that. But the people that we do engage is predominantly, African American and Black people. Seeing that you are originally from Germany, why do you feel the need to want to speak to the Black community on these issues?
I think it's important. I mean, I've grown up in Black. I mean, my dad's Black. My dad was Black, so I grew up in the Black community. I mean, it's not like it's foreign. I mean, I lived in East Oakland. I lived in Hunters Point, San Francisco, South Berkeley. When I was in here, and it's like, and I've over the years have grown more and more aware of problems, of challenges, and most of the ministry that this is sort of where I've kind of been led, I feel, by the Lord at this time. Doors open, and I try to walk through them when they do, and this was the door that opened, and try to walk through it and do what I can to try to help.
If I could add, aren't you also married to a Black woman as well?
Yes.
There we go. And your kids are mixed, right?
I guess I'm my dad's Black, my wife is Black,
right, of course,
kids
right.
or whatever,
Yeah.
So however you want to view that.
Yeah, I just want to get it on record just to let the people know, because sometimes they feel as if you know how it is in the back chats and all that stuff, man. People make up all kind of stuff and say all kind of stuff. So I just wanted to get it on record. This is a brother of ours that's pertaining to race, as y'all like to harp on out there in the conscious community. This is our brother as pertaining to that. Now, you're my brother, regardless if you was Black, white, green, purple, whatever. You're my brother in Christ. So that's what it would be against anybody. I defend you to the ends of the earth when it comes to being my brother in Christ. So you already know that. So is there any other things that you would like to let the listening audience know? And while you're going into that spiel, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And when you close out from that, then we'll allow some of the people to ask you some of the questions. Do you have a preference on questions that you want to be asked? Is there particular topics, or are you just taking them as they come?
Yeah, whatever people feel. I just to the people out there to whom this is actually important, assuming it actually is important. I also have been, 100% of my ministry has been in Black churches. Like I've only belonged to Black churches, Black Baptist, missionary Baptist churches, Church of God in Christ, and African Methodist Episcopal. So I was in Africa. I was an AME for a number of years, and so I mean, if that's important to people, then might as well mention that too.
Right. Yeah, that's important to a lot of people in the conscious community. I know when I came into the conscious community, as you know a little bit of my story, I've gave my testimony on this channel. One of the things that sucked me out of the Bible, away from biblical teachings, was, encountering the conscious community and people telling me, not to believe in the Bible because it's the white man's religion. So they care about that more than anything. And I used to care Probably not as much as they did, but I used to care to a certain extent. But over time, it's just like, man, that stuff don't really matter. 1 + 1 is 2. It don't matter if a white person said it first, a black person, a Mexican, or Chinese. If it's true, it's true, and that's the end all be all of it. So
yeah, and also could I add too, that's true, and also, at the same time, it's good to know, it's a blessing to know that God can use you too, like that God has used people like you, whoever you are out there, right? That God has used people like you and can use people like you, and that and that it's not exclusive to other people, no matter who it is, and no matter how other people may try to present it at times either, to be honest. So God, he loves everyone and he wants to save everyone.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially coming from the perspective of course, you and I believe this, but just say hypothetically, let's say the God of the Bible is the real God. If he created all of us, then he can't be racist. He can't be one for all. A lot of people like to look in the Bible and see, well, oh, God had a chosen people, Israel this, Israel that. Well, you got to remember, the Bible don't start with Israel, neither does it end with Israel, and neither did God choose them to say that they were better than anybody else. I mean, just for the overall point, I mean, they were the nation chosen that the Messiah was going to come through. They was messed up just like everybody else in the Bible. They messed up just like everybody else, So sometimes it kind of boggles my mind how people can read the Bible and just Genesis alone, just read Genesis alone and then still walk away with, oh, this is a, white man, black man, or this or that. Coming from the position of, if the God of the Bible is actually the real God that created everything in the world and all that, I can see how they walk away from this text thinking that they are somehow not included for some kind of faulty misrepresentation of the scriptures,
Right.
If there's anything else that you want to let the listening audience know about you, or that you want to touch on yourself, I'm going to drop the link in the chat, and you will see people start coming in. So go on and give your spiel, and at the end of your spiel, we'll let them ask questions.
That's good. I'm good. Yeah, I don't really have any other spiel.
Okay. Well, while I'm dropping the link, then I'll ask you. What are some of your major influences, like some of your favorite teachers or favorite books that you like to read that helps with Christian apologetics?
Probably the two most influential books beside the Bible itself are Exegetical Fallacies by D.A. Carson and New Testament Theology by Frank Stagg. And Exegetical Fallacies is really good on all kinds of different logical and historical, grammatical, and other kinds of fallacies that everybody does, right? So it's not just because someone's an unbeliever that they commit fallacies, but believers do too. He points all of those out. New Testament Theology by Frank Stagg is a book that profoundly helped me understand the gravity of sin. I didn't really understand the depths of it and the totality, or the depths of it and the severity of it until I read that book. And that's really helped me. Those two things have really grounded me a lot. I like other things like F.F. Bruce is a really good author. D.A. Carson are both really good authors. Kenneth Kitchen, R.K. Harrison, Alan Millard. There's a number of really very first-class scholars that are in the Bible, Bible scholars that I like to read.
Okay. That we're looking forward to bringing more people on the channel, and from all walks of life. Is there anybody in particular, as of right now, that who you would like to have a conversation or a dialogue with on a particular subject?
Not really, no. I have a lot of dialogues, that I feel are productive, but not specifically, no, not really.
Okay.
I like watching them, but
Right. We have one of our first participants in the building. Look like this is my brother Leandre from the One. What's up, Leandre? How you doing tonight, my brother?
Oh man, I'm doing good, man. How you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. If you have any questions or any statements you want to ask Brother Robert Ash, bro, the floor is yours at the moment.
Well, one, I wanted to say thank you for the testimony and everything that you gave. That was actually, it's pretty interesting. It's definitely not the background I came from. So thank you for sharing that. I had a question for you. One particular, because I watched the debate you had with Bianchi about God and evil. My question is, do you think there's a morally significant difference between God causing evil and God allowing evil? And if so, what is it?
The answer is yes, and the answer depends on the definition of evil, right? As you know have seen, the definition of evil actually encompasses two things, right? One is what we
Natural and
call
moral evil.
circumstantial or moral evil, right? So God cannot cause moral evil, right? That's against his nature. Circumstantial evil is sometimes understandable, but also sometimes it's very puzzling, and it's frustrating. And why do bad things happen, to good people, right? Those are certain things that we won't understand. What one of the functions, and I'm not saying that this justifies horrors being done to people, but one of the functions that that circumstantial evil does, or the allowance of circumstantial evil, one is to show the gravity of sin and just how horrific it is, but also that we need to really, in order to trust God, we need to have faith that he knows what he's doing, and allow God room to be God, even if we disagree or dislike what he's doing. And so one perfect example of that really in scripture is Jonah, right? Jonah hated the fact that God spared Nineveh. If you're familiar with that account, that God was going to destroy Nineveh. Jonah was waiting for it to happen, wanted it to happen, because of the wickedness and cruelty these people had done to his people. They were, oppressors of the Hebrews, of the Israelites, and they repented and changed, their practices, their ways, and God didn't bring the calamity on him that he was going to do. And Jonah hated that, right? And so, likewise, we have the same struggles with why does God allow this terrible thing to happen? And really, it's giving God room to be God in a way that we don't necessarily understand or grasp. And that's really, that's where faith comes in, and that's one place where faith comes in, and it's something that it's a struggle. And I'm not saying that I don't struggle with it too. I do.
Question: Are you? Because I know we had a conversation about philosophy the other day, so I'm gonna poke at you here a little bit. Are you familiar with James Rochelle?
No.
The philosopher. Well, he had a thought experiment, and I wanted to because ask the question about the moral significance between God allowing or God causing evil. And like I said, I watched your debate a couple months back. But so here's the thought experiment James Rochelle put forward. He puts forward two different scenarios. One of them, the person he calls Smith, and he says Smith, for example, has a young cousin who's taking a bath, and Smith holds the child underwater, and the child dies. And I think that you and I will both would agree that that there's something to be said about the action of Smith. And then he proposes an alternate scenario where he says that there's another person, Jones, that Jones is watching his young cousin taking a bath. He sees his little cousin slip, fall, hit his head, and then fall underwater. The child goes unconscious, the child dies as Jones is sitting there watching. The premise there that we just established from you was that there was a morally significant difference between God allowing evil and God causing evil. Like Smith caused evil, Jones allowed the sort of evil to happen. In both of those cases, and I don't know how you would classify death, and maybe you can answer that in your question, if death is either a moral evil or a natural evil. But in both of those cases, there was an action that took place on the part of both of those people. With Jones, it was inaction. He just watched his little cousin drown, didn't intervene at all. And Smith actually held the child underwater. What's the morally significant difference between both of those actors?
On a human level, I would say probably nothing. On God's level, there's a dimension that this philosopher is missing. And that is, there's two dimensions that the philosopher is missing, right? One is that, clearly the implication here is trying to blame God for letting this child drown, right? He's trying to put God in the place of Jones.
Well, no. The philosopher is actually just the premise was, and this why I asked the question. The premise was that there's a morally significant difference between causing evil and allowing evil. And so if that's true, it's true for everybody. So it would be like you were just talking about these things that God couldn't do because man does these things, God doesn't do these things. If this is true for regardless of who. It doesn't seem, and maybe you can explain, maybe this is part of your answer, that this has something to do with legitimate authorities and that sort of thing. But I don't see how that's possible with this in his paradigm here. But and maybe I'll explain. But the person is just establishing that there's no morally significant difference between a person holding a child underwater and then a person just simply watching it happen. As a matter of fact, what they do move from there. What James Rochelle does move to there afterward is saying that if this is true from a human perspective, every reason that Jones would have to intervene, it will be multiplied at the time that it gets to God. He has much more ability than Jones. He doesn't have to lift as much as a finger. He can intervene by any means necessary. So, but I'll let you get back to your answer now. But yeah, so I'm interested in hearing your answer.
Okay. Real quick, we've had several people to jump into the chat to ask their questions. So Leon's right. Stick around, right? And I'm gonna let you continue to have your back and forward with Robert. But Robert, can you answer Leon's question? And then we're gonna get to the next person, and then come back to Leon's once we go through the other people who've jumped on the panel. Is that cool, Leon's?
Yeah,
Okay.
Perfect. My bad, big dog.
No, bro, you good all day. Go ahead, brother Robert.
So here's the short answer as I understand it. On a human level, there's really no difference, right? Because of the human responsibility. On God's level, there are, I knew where this was going, right? So on God's level, there are dimensions that are additional to the human dimension that we really won't be able to understand. But that's as much as I can do without, taking like a lot more time.
All righty, man. We appreciate your question, Leon. We're going to come back to you, my brother. Google Scholar is in the building. Google Scholar, you can take yourself off mute, my brother. Do you have a question you want to ask or a statement you want to make to Brother Robert Ash?
Yeah, peace, and good evening, everybody. Where do I start? First, I want to say peace. Good evening to everybody on the panel. Peace to the brother Robert. My first time speaking to you. But before I get to you, Leandre, I've never personally met Leandre, but I want to say those were two excellent questions you asked. And kudos to you for that. I want to take it to another level. I want to delve a little more into into your understanding of the Bible. Based on what you said, you're somebody who's educated in our system. So I take it that you accept modern science, right?
To a degree.
Okay, to a degree. Okay, so are you somebody that subscribe to the doctrine of biblical inerrancy?
I do, yes. And biblical inerrancy, to clarify, is that the Bible is inerrant in its original autographs, right? It doesn't mean that there's been no issues of transmission here and there, different versions and that sort of thing. So I don't want to create. I'm not saying that I don't believe in any kind of biblical inerrancy. Doesn't mean that God handed the King James Bible down to Moses on Mount Sinai.
No, I get it. I also have an issue with that, but that's not what I wanted to address right now. Because if you're claiming inerrancy for the autographs, that means you're taking it on faith, because we don't have the autographs. So you that's not something we could look to prove. But I don't want to get bogged down by that. My initial question is, if the Bible is an inerrant work, how do you explain the scientific mistakes that are in the Bible? And I can give you an example of one that cannot be explained if you think that the Bible is an inerrant work, unless you're saying that this was not in the original, in the autographs. In Leviticus 11, verse 19, the Bible indicates that bats are birds. Now we know through modern science that this is not the case. How would you explain that from a view of biblical inerrancy?
Because modern science has taxonomies and like derivations of family trees that didn't exist back then, and also you have to take the Bible at the the way that it was written. It wasn't like back that time. It's written in colloquial, in much in colloquial speech, right? So for instance, give you another example. So back then, bats and birds were considered the same. That was just like a colloquial classification. The classification of bats and birds being different now is arbitrary, based on different criteria, right? So science has certain criteria. Modern 20th century science, with its with the animal kingdom trees, has certain criteria by which they classify and create all of these phylums and genuses and subcategories and species and that sort of thing, right? Back in biblical days, they had different criteria for classifying things, right? So you can't. It's called semantic. It's like a form of anachronism. It's an ideological anachronism of taking a classification or a definition of today and then imposing it on a 3,500-year-old text, right? Because they just didn't mean the same thing. It's just like, for instance, and this is that I like to use a lot, like when Muhammad Ali said, "I'm a bad man," right? For some white suburban guy in Europe or upstate New York to say, "See, he said he was a criminal, and that's just so he should have been thrown in jail," right? That's just not that's not what he meant by that when he said it, right? So you have to make allowances and understand the Bible the way that it was originally intended. You can't force intent or definitions on it that they didn't mean back then.
Okay, Google
Okay,
Scholar.
before, yeah, I understand the other people. I'm not gonna ask another question. I just wanted to address a point before you move to the next person, if that's okay.
Okay, brother, go ahead.
Yeah. What I want to say is the idea that modern science has gotten the classification as the phrase he used was arbitrary, and that back then they had different classifications. I agree that back then the knowledge that they had a different classification, but in modern times the classification that we have is not arbitrary. If anything, it's the reverse. What they had then was arbitrary. What we have now is more precise, because we can actually look at a bat and we see that a bat and a bird is actually not the same kind of animal, right? A bat gives birth to live young, a bird doesn't. A bat is nurses its young, a bird doesn't. So we know that it's not arbitrary. We see now that it is more accurate and it's more closer to reality. Not saying that the people back then were stupid or they didn't know what they're talking about, but they were going off the knowledge that they had at that time or that was available. So that idea.
Sorry to interrupt you, but let me address that. It is arbitrary in the sense that scientists could, if they wanted to, decide that there is a class of animals that has flapping wings and warm blood, and we're going to name it this, right? If that was their criteria, right? So, but their criteria for classification happened to be different than the criteria for classification of the people in Bible that people had in Bible days. So that's why I mean it's arbitrary. It's arbitrary because it's a choice that falls logically with the criteria for animal classification that people have today, right? So, but if they chose a different classification for different reasons, then those classifications would be different as well. So that's what I meant by arbitrary. I don't mean that it's illogical. I don't mean it's random. I don't mean that, right? What I'm saying is that, that it depends on the criteria you choose. So you can't hold, again, and this is true for a lot of these types of critiques of the Bible, you can't hold 20th century Western standards and, to what the Bible was saying, just like you can't hold punctilious, legal non-disclosure agreement type legal language onto ordinary conversation or people's letters and sue them based on that. You just can't.
And I totally agree, but the whole point is the knowledge that's in the Bible should be superior to what we have in modern science, and there's the issue. Because if it's inerrant, then it shouldn't be a mistake or a contradiction or even an inaccuracy. So that's my point.
Okay,
We can
Robert,
move
we're
to
gonna
the
let you
next
address.
question.
Yeah, that's sort of that. Yeah, that's sort
Robert,
of
go ahead,
like
address
saying,
that, then we're gonna move on.
yeah, no problem. I mean, that's really kind of like saying that, that somebody, is that let's see, let me think, that football should be like, chess, right? I mean, football is football, chess is chess, and to say that one is superior to another just doesn't make sense. And it's the same thing here. You can't. It's two different intents, two different audiences. You can't take legal language and casual language like we have here and try to hold them to the same standard because they have different purposes, right? It's just that's not a valid critique.
Right. Hey, peace to you, brother. My name is Outside the Cube, but you can
Now, hold up,
address.
Hold up, Cube. Everything going in order, my brother. You just came on last. Let me get to the other people first, and then we're gonna get to you, my brother.
I apologize, my bad.
Oh no, you good. Where he go? We got Anouk Katarat in the building. Did I pronounce your name right, bro?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, from Naga, right?
Yeah, from Naga.
From Naga. All right, Anouk, man, go ahead and ask your question or make your statement to Pastor Robert X, bro.
Okay, so my question to Robert is this: Where does the literal interpretation or the literal understanding of the book and the word comes, and where does the allegorical, philosophical meaning of the book, where does it begin? Like, we're confused about when are we supposed to take it literal? When are we supposed to take it as allegory? So can you explain to us where the literary starts and the allegory begins?
That's that's one of the most insightful questions I've seen. It's really there's several different layers, right? So here's basically your like your Genesis through your historical books, right? Genesis through the Kings, say, those are pretty much literal. If you have prophecies like Daniel's prophecy, like the second half of Daniel, a lot of Jeremiah and Ezekiel, the major prophets and minor prophets, a lot of they are speaking in prophetic terms that are largely, allegorical, things like Revelation as well. Those are if it's more poetic and prophetic sounding language like that, it's typically going to be allegorical. If it is more historical or prose oriented, like in the Gospels, it's typically going to be literal. Now, there's going to be in each of those exceptions, but that's the best guideline. Now, on top of that, there's a layer of the literal events in the Bible having allegorical meaning, for people in people's lives, or being, like types, like you hear about typology, which is that there are a lot of the things in the Old Testament are sort of types or predecessors, allegorical predecessors, symbolic, not allegorical, symbolic predecessors of things that happen in the New Testament. For instance, the sacrifices of the lamb, like the Passover lamb, is a literal event that actually did happen, but it's also symbolic of Jesus Christ dying on the cross, for our sins, and for our sins, and then afterwards, obviously rising from the dead. So really, it depends on the books. In the different books, it's you just read it sort of like a history book, and then with Paul's letters in the New Testament, for instance, and in the Gospels, you read them pretty much like letters and historical accounts. And then and you'll be within like 90%, 95% of what's actually intended to be literal versus what's intended to be allegorical. Now, with that, because of people, these schools that come up, and they've been there from the beginning, but particularly like with the Wellhausen School starting in the 1800s, and with the after the William Albright, there's a couple of archaeologists after that really in the 1960s who just declared everything to be a myth, right? They just clean the slate. It was a proof by assertion. It's a logical fallacy called proof by assertion. But they basically did that. And now they see, there's a school of people that tend to try to see everything in the Bible as allegorical. But taking the Bible on its own, then the things that read like history are meant to be taken literally. And the things that read like prophecy, like you have Daniel with the statue with the clay feet, and the goat with 4 horns, and Revelation, the beast and the Antichrist, all of those are more prophetic, right? And they're intended to be symbolic of things that either are or are to come, or that have happened in the past. Just read it like a history book or a letter to a friend, and in the parts that leap out that say, there ain't no 4-headed goats, there are 4-horned goats that that are going to kill this thing, or like the 10-headed beast coming out of the sea. Those sorts of things are obviously symbolic, right? So that's the best way to start.
Oh man, hey brother, you're amazing, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Can I speak now?
Sure.
No, we still got about 2 more people in front of you, man.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you good all day, my brother. Brother Pianki, what's good with it, man? The founder of the show, of the platform, is on the call, man. What's good with you, my brother?
What's good? What's good, man? Cube, you rude as hell, man. You didn't butt it in twice, man. Dang. I'm just messing with you. But
I apologize. I
nah,
apologize.
you
Seriously.
good, man. I'm just messing with you. On the real, I just wanted to tell my brother Robert, good show. I appreciated it. Appreciate you coming on. I see you got a lot of people in here ready to ask questions as predicted. And so just wanted to salute you and thank you for coming on again, my brother. And for those who wouldn't listen and who've been questioning it, I want to emphasize that my brother said that his father was Black.
Come on now.
So I'm suggesting that we put certain shit to bed now.
They don't listen.
Let's do that. But moving on from that, again, good show. My brother Google Scholar, I love you, bro, but you messed up with me. You gave Leandre props. And if you know me, you know you do not give Leandre props on this platform. I will not allow it.
Hey, bro, what's the number to your job?
I'm not gonna tell you. I'm never gonna tell you.
I need it
You
for
will never
something
find
else.
out. You know, I'm not. You will never find out because you will get me fired. I'm not gonna tell you the of none of my businesses. You mess around, call the Better Business Bureau, Google Scholar. Do not, this platform, you are not allowed to give Leandre props. He is my adversary, and so
Yeah, you should have given me the heads up before.
No, hey, in all seriousness, Google Scholar Leandre is one of the most impressive young brothers that I have ever come across. I like messing with him, like sparring with him. As you can see, he loves taking people out to deep water. So Robert, you gotta watch him and make sure you got your life raft on, your life jacket on when you having conversations with Leandre, because he will take you out to deep water and try to drown you. He'll pull you back up and give you mouth to mouth, but he will try to drown you. But
They
yeah,
refer to that
everybody, I just want to say I appreciate y'all. I just want to say I appreciate y'all. Shout out to my brother Sadio, the Scripture Ripper. Shout out to Outside the Cube, my brother New Kakarot, everybody that came on and participated, everybody in the chat. Y'all keep on doing what you're doing. Salute. And like I said, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro.
My ass to bed. Peace.
Yeah, gonna go to sleep. It's been an hour, 30 minutes now. You can go to sleep now. I approve of it. All right. We got next in line. We gotta keep everything. Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead. It's your show, Robert. It's your show.
Yeah, to my brother Anu's question, as far as allegory, there's a layer I missed, which is that you can take literal events in the Bible and make allegories out of them. Like, Peter walking the water and then drowning, right? So that there's a whole lot of allegories in that in life. The problem becomes when the allegory becomes so stretches the actual account and isn't supportable by what's there or contradicts what's there, because people can make some really wild leaps, and I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure everybody here has. But if you're going to make allegories of the literal events, like the resurrection or a miracle that happened, or walking from Jerusalem to Jericho, then keep the allegory credible.
All right. We're gonna move to the next person. We're gonna keep it respectful, and take the answers for what they are. Brother Scripture Ripper Sabio, take yourself off mute, my brother. Ask your question or make your statement, my brother.
All right. What up? Peace, everybody.
Hello.
There's a few things that he said, and I just want to push back a little bit, and I'm going to come from the Paulinist perspective, as my name says, the Paulinist. I'm going to come with you from Romans 3:7. Are you familiar with that verse?
Yes, I'm sure I am. Let me look it up though.
No. I will read it. I will recite it for you off the top of my head.
Go ahead, Sabio. You can read it while he look it up.
For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why am I yet also judged as a sinner? Now that being said, coming from a Paulinist perspective, because me who studied Paul while I was in the church, I studied his letters extensively, and I recognized that Paul co-opted Christianity. What was Paul doing in that verse?
Well, basically, he is showing, because it starts actually back in verse 4, right? It said, God forbid, yet let God be true, but every man a liar. And as it says that thou must be justified in your sayings and might overcome when you're judged, right? But if our unrighteousness commend the righteousness of God, right? What shall we say?
Favorite verse of the Bible.
And that's the context, right? So the context is that the fact that we, like, where it says that
get him.
Okay,
this is my favorite verse of the Bible.
Come on, y'all, keep it respectful. Let them go.
Come on with it. This is my favorite verse of the Bible. So come on with it.
Come on, let them answer the question. Come on, y'all.
Okay. Yeah. So the context is that that the fact that the law, we cannot obey the law shows that we are sinners, right? And
Mhm.
that commends God's righteousness, which means that it shows that God is right in what he's saying. And so our unrighteousness or commending the righteousness of God, or showing, demonstrating the
Okay.
righteousness of God,
I'm
right?
with you. I'm with you.
So basically, when we sin, right, that shows that God is right. So the truth of God has abounded more through my lie under his glory, right? We cannot be righteous, right? We are, in that sense, moral lies if we think we can. And so accepting that is what the gospel is all about, right? And that's
Okay.
where
Okay.
God's glory comes from.
Okay. Right there. So accepting that we cannot be morally right in the sight of God because God's word is always right. This is exactly what you just said, right?
Yep.
So if Paul is saying that he is not being truthful, why is he still judged as a sinner? Because he cannot be morally right in the eyes of man, but in the eyes of God, he is doing God's work. For if the truth of God more abounds through his lie, not through his truth, not through his truth. No, not through his truth. Hold on. God is not the father of lies. God is not the father of lies according to the gospel, according to the narrative. God is not the father of confusion. So he did not say, for if the glory of God more abound through my truth. He said, through my lie. Why am I still judged as a sinner? And I know the context. I told you I studied this. That's why I said I was with you. Until then, because that's where it breaks down. Because he is now saying that I can say things that are untruthful to humans. Because what? He ties it up. Want me to continue? You can go
That's
to.
not what he's saying.
Go make your statement. Wait. ABO, make your ask your question. No, you hold on.
For all have
Ask your
sinned,
question or make your statement, my brother.
for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So he is still saying that he, Paul, a human, is falling short of the glory of God in the eyes of man. But I am doing God's work. So if I tell an untruth, you can judge me as a sinner, but is God judging me as a sinner?
All right, Robert Ash, address Fabio's statement, and then we're going to get to the next person.
Yeah, sure. This is this does not say, Paul is not saying that he's lying, right? What he's saying is that any righteousness that he has a claim to is a lie, right? And so that's different. You can understand that you're a sinner. You can understand that you can't be righteous before God's law because no one can keep the law of God. There's 613 laws. Nobody can keep them. Now that does not mean that you are incapable of telling the truth about the gospel. And the truth about the gospel is that there is no righteousness in man that can save us. And that is the truth, right? So that it's in that context. It's not saying that he's walking around telling lies about God or that he's telling lies and then God is saying, yeah, okay, go boy. No, that's not it. What he's saying is that, that it's this whole passage from Romans 2 through Romans 8, that whole passage has to do with the inability of people, of us to be righteous on our own accord, and the necessity of grace to save us through the grace of Jesus Christ and his resurrection from the dead, his death on the cross, and our being counted as righteous in God's eyes because he sees us through the blood of Jesus Christ and not through the reality of our own sin. right?
Yo,
So that's
yeah,
really,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yo,
Bro,
Robert,
keep
his,
order, bro. Order.
okay,
He
okay,
was
okay. I
addressing your
got one
first
more
statement.
verse. I got one more verse.
No,
Second
stay,
Corinthians,
bro.
Second
Stay
Corinthians
on, bro.
9 through
KBO,
19, 9,
KBO,
19 through 23.
KBO. Come on, bro. Stay on, bro. And we're gonna get to the next people, and then we're gonna come back to you so you can ask your second question, my brother. Cause we still got other people who haven't even asked their first question yet. All right. Let's move on to the next person. We got outside the cube in the building. Outside the cube, take yourself off mute. We're gonna keep order the same way we've been doing all night. Go ahead and ask your question and make your statement, my brother.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I apologize to the brother that he has to endure some of these people who just
No
aren't
shade, no
able.
shade, Cube. No shade. Go ahead, bro. No shade.
Oh, okay.
No shade, no shade.
Yes, yeah. I apologize to you, brother. But I do want to ask you this. What would you prefer me address you as, my good brother?
Robert.
Okay, great. Well, you can refer to me as Cube.
Okay,
Is that
Q.
okay? Okay, great. So I want to ask you this. So I would assume that you would agree that when you see the world that we live in, you would assume that it was a world created such by the God you believe in, correct?
What do you mean by that? Do you mean in its current state? Was it created in its current state that way, or it was the world created originally by God in the first place? What's your reference?
Yeah, what I'm referring to is the earth that we see it in and the entirety of what we see, stars, moon, everything. You would agree that this thing was created by your God, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So now, full disclosure, I am an atheist and I do not agree with any of that. So is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. So when you see this world and you say and you would say that it's designed by a creator, what would a world or earth or universe look like that wasn't designed by a creator? Would you have any idea what that would look like?
It would be chaos. All right. Well, first of all, it wouldn't exist, right? But had it, would it be? It would, if it were able to exist, it would be chaos.
Okay. Well, you're seeing three different things. So let's just delve into the one thing I really want to deal with. So how would you know? Now, have you ever been in contact with a world that was not created? Have you ever been in contact with that particular world?
By definition, no.
Oh, okay.
Well, wait.
So
It depends on what you mean. Okay. It depends on what you mean, right? So meaning that, is there, have I ever been to another planet, right? The answer is no, I haven't. But in terms of a world that is,
hold on. Can we pause right there though?
yeah, sure.
Because you were very open and honest about what that world will look like. So I'm interested in that. How do you know and understand what a particular world will look like if if you haven't been there, and B, you have no idea, as you just said. So like, how would you understand or even know what this particular world will look like?
Okay, I don't. Let me first clarify the context, because I'm not 100% sure I follow you. If I'm not following you, please correct me. I'd be happy to readdress it. There's two things, right? One is the physical universe that we see, and no, I've never been to another planet in this physical universe. I've never been outside this world that we live in the physical universe.
Okay, can I stop
Second,
you right there? Oh, hold on. Can I stop you
yes,
right there?
yes, sure,
Now,
absolutely.
hold up,
Oh,
bro.
okay.
Hold up, bro.
No,
You
no,
gotta let
no,
him
no,
answer you.
no. He
Go
said
ahead.
I can stop. No, he said I can stop him, and that's why I
He
did it.
did. You're right. He did. Go ahead.
All right. So to be fair, my initial question was, when you see this world, you say it was designed by a creator. You say yes, correct?
Correct.
All right. So when you see this world, you say it was designed. How do you know that this world is designed? How do you know that? Especially if you've already said you've never been to another world or universe that was not created. How do you know these things?
Well, to the degree that you can know, you can see footprints and clues. So, for instance, you know, and this is a very common one, is that you think about a Big Bang, right? A Big Bang is an explosion is an inherently chaotic event, right? So order does not spontaneously come from chaos, and it breaks down as if there's statistical anomalies in a chaotic situation. It can create like a quasi or a semi type of order theoretically, but those things tend to break down a lot, and would also
Can I
tend to
ask
break
you?
down.
Can I ask you a
Yeah,
question, brother?
yeah, sure.
You just told me that you've never been into a different universe and you don't know. So explain to me, how are you explaining how another universe would look, what it would look like, how it would sound, how it would feel? So explain to me, how are you doing this?
Oh,
Hello, hello, Robert. In answering Cube's question, Cube, can you also ask your main question as well, so that way he can answer both of them, and then we can get to the next person.
Well, that is my main question, and I think he understands where I'm going,
Right.
because
I see you.
what
I
I'm
see you too. I see where you're going.
because what I'm attempting to do is I'm asking him, essentially, what is what would a universe look like that was not designed? Like that's essentially the question. But I have to
Line it
uh
up.
I have to push him. I have to push him in a certain way so he can understand what I'm saying. So, well, you know what? Let me put it to him like this, and I'll leave it as this. And when we get the opportunity, we'll speak again,
All
brother.
right.
I'll just say this. I think it's best that you say you don't know, because there's no way that you can ever tell me what a universe would look like if you have not been to that universe, and I'm sure you would agree with that.
no, that's
So,
a fair point. And what I was doing, also to be fair,
well, hold on. You did cut me off, though. You did cut me off.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no.
Come on, Cube. Let's wrap
So
it up.
yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
by cutting me off, you would understand that you have no idea what another universe would look like. And when I say what another universe looks like, you have no idea what it looks like. So you would have to agree that you wouldn't know. And to say that it looks anything different than the universe we live in, or to say that you've seen it, would be disingenuous, correct?
All right. No, it isn't. And the reason is,
So it's not disingenuous to say that you have not seen another universe. That's not
okay, yeah,
disingenuous.
can I finish?
All right.
No.
Cube. Yeah.
All right.
That's your
All right.
statement, and we're gonna let Brother Robert Ash address your statement in totality. Go ahead, Brother
Right.
Robert.
Okay. So first of all, and this is why I asked you things to clarify terms, because otherwise, this is how you kind of get wrapped around the axle in terminology and in concepts, because you don't clarify, because we're not clarifying terms. So to be clear, in an absolute sense, of course not. Right. The sense in which I was answering is based on what is knowable about the observable universe, meaning that if there was a physical observable universe that had any resemblance or operated in any way under the laws that this universe operates on, that it would be chaos. Now, in an absolute sense, you're right. Nobody knows, because such a universe, has never been shown or exist, or as far as we know, it doesn't exist. And as far as as far as I'm concerned from the Bible, it cannot exist. But that's why you have to understand the context of people's questions before trying to accuse them of being disingenuous. Okay.
All righty. Leandre, let me make sure nobody. Okay. Matter of fact, we got iPhone. Who is iPhone? Take yourself off mute. Tell me who your name is, iPhone. And what your name is?
Oh, sorry. Hey, this is the GT man. I'm just listening in. I'm sorry.
Do you have a question for Robert, or are you just listening?
Right now I'm just listening.
All righty. If you can, my brother, put yourself back on mute. We're gonna roll right back around to Leandre. Leandre, take yourself off mute. Ask your question or make your statement, bro.
Robert is getting some pretty funny questions. I think, no disrespect to the brothers asking the questions, but they're particularly funny questions. Robert is a very, very nice man, and so I'm not gonna bother them anymore today. Robert, you and I we'll talk in the chat, but
No, but wait. Okay, well, hold on. I know this Robert show, but before you jump off, you ain't got to name no names or say nothing or whatever. What, based off everything that you've heard so far with people asking questions, what do you think is the ridiculousness out of what you heard?
Well, yeah. One thing is like there are certain questions asked. Like we looked at some verses in the Bible, and there's some pretty ridiculous questions that are being asked, like by like the ones that don't seem to know that Paul is sort of writing sort of antithetical to Quintilian of his day and that sort of thing. And so rhetorical questions are being turned to being declarative statements when the answer is provided. There's a sort of tohu and wabohu sort of balance there, where there's a question being asked and an answer being given, right? And then so there's those sorts of questions. There's questions being asked about whether something can be known absolute, and whether that has something to do with whether or not there's a cumulative case that can be established. Whether or not that there's any legitimate reason for believing certain things, and so it's just there's the logic of it, of some of these questions really just doesn't make any sense. And again, Robert is just really, really nice. So since I haven't reached his age, I don't have that. I'm not nice like that. So I just want to say kudos to him, because I'm sitting back and learning tips. Because Robert, listen, my hat's off to you, big dog, because you're doing a good job of form. So just good job.
Hey, well, Leandre, based off you saying that, I need to interview you pretty soon, my brother, and open the panel up for questions. And you may get some of these same brothers, and you can, answer the questions as you see fit. How you feel about that?
I am hoping so. I'm hoping some of these same questions got my way, but yeah, just again, Robert got that nice old man swag. I'm in my 30s. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't got it.
Hey, well, hey man, they try to set something up for either tomorrow or this coming up Saturday of this week if you're free, and we can do your interview and let some of these same brothers call in, and you can address these questions in your 30-year-old mind frame, my brother.
Hey, hit me, man. I'm down.
Let's do it then, my brother. I appreciate you, bro.
All right.
All right, we're finna go back to Google Scholar. Google Scholar, take yourself off mute, my brother. Ask any questions, make any statement, or go back to what you was talking about at first, bro. It's on you.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I am a simple guy, so my questions may be simple, but my questions are genuine. All right.
Right.
So, I am a person who actually I accept modern science, science that can be verified. So my questions tend to be more along those lines. I'm not into philosophy that much, and I'm also not that deep into the theology, though I used to be a Christian, so I know the theology quite well. But I mainly go on scientific grounds. Now, as a person that accepts modern science, I see no way in which the flood of Noah as described in the Bible could be possible. So can you explain to me how such a flood would be possible given what we know from modern science?
One thing is that, in an absolute sense, I can't necessarily, certainly can't prove it to you. But one thing that I've learned, in studying science is that science isn't absolute. Right, that there's very little in science once you get out of physical, chemistry and Newtonian physics, and actually more core, like core mathematics, applied mathematics. Things get fuzzier quicker, very easily. So when you go into things like archaeology, history, and so forth, you have. I was just reading Actually, I think it might have been posted in the chat today. A very good quote by an archaeologist, and I'll see if I don't know if I can find the article, but he said that, oh yeah. It had to do with a chat thing about somebody claiming to have found wheels from the Pharaoh's chariots at the bottom of some the Gulf of Aqaba somewhere, right? So I was doing some follow-up research on that because it's obviously intriguing. But one of the archaeologists who was quoted in one of the articles I read said that that basically archaeology is like 10% physical evidence and 90% interpretation. And this is something that, and this was a guy that actually was opposed to this guy's allegation of having found, Pharaoh's chariot wheels at the bottom of some, body of water. And so that's something to really keep in mind. Science, it's not true that science is science. You have hard sciences, like you have your physical sciences. Then you have more soft sciences, which are like archaeology, paleontology, anthropology. And then you go like outside of that, you get history, and you get more and more interpretation. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, is that science is not absolute truth. And science, and the farther you get away from the most core things, the fuzzier it gets and the more interpretation and opinion that there are. Along with things like peer pressure, which I've seen, and I've actually been told by head of a psychology department at a university, and some other things I could share with you. So that's one thing, is that science is not absolute. Another thing too is that the flood happened like over like a 5 or 6 month period. That is over a period of many, many thousands of years. So what evidence is expected may or may not be what evidence actually appears. Another thing too is that there are some circumstantial things that at least warrant thought, and they may not be compelling to you, but they do warrant thought. And that is that there have been some kind of morphish sort of flood accounts or collective recollections from people, around the world that really didn't have necessarily contact of some kind of version of a flood account of some kind, or flood myth or legend or whatever. In other cases, like the Gilgamesh epic is the most well-known one, but there are also ones that you run across, like in Native American cultures, for instance, that I've read about. And so there seems to be a collective human memory of some kind of event, or either that, or people around the world who don't contact each other are fabricating the same thing, the same colossal event that happened to do with water. So that's one thing, at least pointing in that direction. So it,
Okay.
so whether, some of it depends on two things. One is what level of evidence that you personally find compelling, and that's your personal decision. And another one is the willingness to accept possibilities based on things that might be circumstantial and not necessarily direct. There was another article that I had run across earlier, and I forgot if it was in the chat or not. I picked up some good articles in that chat that said that there seemed to have been some kind of a mass die-off of males or something, or men or whatever, some 7,000 years ago. So every once in a while, you'll see, even for these sorts of things, some kind of beacon that could point in that direction. But it really depends
Okay.
on what,
Yeah.
what level of evidence you're looking for and what exactly you want to see.
Yeah, I get the gist of what you're saying. I see the point you're making, but for me, it is somewhat of a double standard, or some kind of dissonance. And let me tell you why I say this. Because the very fact that the first thing you said was, well, science is not absolute, and some science is more certain than others. We already know this, so that was not the point. The point was modern science as a discipline has been refined over time, and the better it has gotten is the more evidence have been uncovered to indicate that this did not happen. I also noted that you quoted a few of the finds of science that seems to support the idea that there could have been, but yet you dismiss all the ones that actually indicates that this was not possible. You also mentioned the idea
No,
of
well,
floods.
could I interrupt you there?
Yeah,
No,
let me
I'm
just
not.
make one more point and then you can
Yeah,
go.
okay.
Also the idea that you mentioned of flood stories in different cultures around the planet. I noticed that you use that as an example, but then you failed to mention the other cultures that seems to have existed before that, which show no evidence of a flood. So that's why I say it's sort of a dissonance on your part. You can go ahead and address.
No, I mean, that's fine, if that's what you want to think. I'm not dismissing out in your that's incorrect. I don't know whether I didn't say it or whether you didn't hear it, but I didn't outright dismiss anything, right? What I did say was that there are sciences that are softer than others, and that's an objective fact, right? And anyone that's familiar with science will know that. And what I did say was that that there are some these sort of beacons that seem to point, circumstantially in a direction that would support the flood. And what I did say is that it depends on what kind of evidence that you choose to see and that you feel, and each person has their own threshold, is acceptable to you. And it's not correct to say that there's evidence that it never happened. What is correct to say is that paleontologists or whoever else haven't been able to uncover evidence that it did happen. And that's logically different. That's like so that's not saying quite the same thing.
Yes, before nobody comes in, I wanted to make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's evidence that it never happened, because that would be proving a negative. I didn't say that. What I'm saying is there are cultures that have existed way past the time that the flood is supposed to have happened, like ancient Egypt, for example, like the Göbekli Tepe in Mesopotamia. They have excavated these sites. There's no evidence of ever being covered by water to that extent. So you have to take that into consideration. If you're going to say you're going to use the evidences of other cultures that have some sort of a flood story, then you also have to look at this and say and put it in balance and say, maybe I can't use this one evidence because this one is also a counter to that, is my point. You have to be balanced in that regard.
No, I agree, and that's fine. What I've found in my walk over the years is that this flood one is one that's certainly persistent, but also I've seen that in the long run it's a really good thing for Bible believers to play the waiting game, right? Because give you just these are kind of unrelated examples, but things like the in Wellhausen, when they said that that the Bible was written like 200 or 300 years after the fact, they found out through archaeological evidence that no, it was written contemporary. When in terms of like Adam and Eve, right? They couldn't find a missing link, so they went through to a common ancestor model and started digging around and finding bones and things like that. But there was also an article saying that that where people were conceding that they felt that there was an Eve, but no like real Adam, like there was some kind of a proto-human that had several different mates, and that's how modern humanity came, right? And so and same thing with the creation, right? That this Big Bang theory was actually found out through the chat was created, was come up with by a Catholic priest. But the general succession of how they feel the Big Bang happened roughly lines up with decently, with the Genesis account in some key areas. Of course, there's going to be differences. I'm sure you point those out, but still, over time, the gap between, and now even with like Wellhausen's theory, there's people, a couple scholars at UC Berkeley that said that the whole documentary hypothesis is in trouble, and it's just not really well grounded. So there's, over time, there are areas where the modern science, whatever stage it's in, whether it's 1800s or 1900s or 2000s, tends to at least nod in the direction that's more in tune, with what the Bible has been saying all along. And so it, like I said, it depends on what type of evidence that you demand or prefer, and it depends on on how, sometimes on how you choose to see it. But I think that there's ample ground for the veracity of the Bible overall.
All
Of
right.
course, you understand that. Let me just say this. You understand that
I gotta make your final statement, Google. You gotta make your final statement.
Yeah.
Stay on if you want to. We're gonna come back to you.
Yeah, you understand that the view that you just expressed, I totally disagree with. I actually believe that the more we have learned through sciences, the more we have, is the farther we actually come into understanding that the view of the especially the evolution of man is in Genesis is totally wrong. But I understand that's your view, so I'll let somebody else get to their question. I hope I get some time on another time to flush that out, because I believe that's wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Sabio, take yourself off mute, my brother. Go on and ask your question or make your statement, bro.
So the documentary hypothesis is not in trouble, yo. I don't know why you would even go there. There is no evidence of the flood, and the Mnemosyne Stela was a bad example to use. All right. Now, back to this Paul fella. You see, I named myself the Paulinist because I know Paul very well. And you said some things, and I knew you was going to say them. Why you think I was cheering you on? You heard, and I know you heard me cheer you on because I knew where you were going. I knew what you was going to say. So I want to take you to 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23, because I want to get you to understand that this guy, Paul, was actually lying, and he told you numerous times throughout the Bible. All right. So, and I'm going to preface it for you. I'm going to do it like you did it because you thought I was misrepresenting Romans 3:7. And no, I didn't. I knew where I should have started at the first verse, but I didn't want to take up a lot of time. That's why I started there. And so let me get this 19 through 23. And I'm going to start at verse 16. All right. Is that okay, Robert?
Do it yourself.
All right. Okay. So, for though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to glory of, for necessity is laid upon me. Yea, woe is unto me if I preach not the gospel. For I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. For if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me, what is my reward then? Verily, that when I preach the gospel, I may make the gospel of Christ without charge, that I abuse not my power in the gospel. For though I be free from all men, yet I have made myself servant unto all, that I might gain the more. Here go the keys. Pay attention. And unto the Jews, I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as are under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without the law, to them that are without law, as without law, being without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. And I do this for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you. So again, he let you know that he was going to do whatever he had to do to save some. He became weak. He became a sinner. He became a liar. He became a Jew. He became a Greek. He let this be known. So again, this takes us to Galatians 2.
Okay, could I, could we address that one?
Yeah, bro,
Could
you
we
can't
address
follow the
that
Bible.
before? Yeah,
Let
because
him
this
address
could go,
what you said in Corinthians
yeah,
first.
yeah.
I'm
See,
almost
but this
finished.
could,
I'm almost
this,
Let him
this
let him
could
address
go
what
on
you
all
said in
night, man.
Corinthians first.
I'm
This
almost
could
Hey,
finished.
be, no, this could go on
let
all
him
night.
address.
Let's take
Everybody,
it.
pause.
Yeah,
I'm
this is,
Let
tying
him
it
address
all
yeah,
what
up.
you.
I'm tying
Let
it
him
all
address.
up.
Pause,
I
bro.
tie it all up.
yeah, let's
Let
not
him
do a
address what you
filibuster
said
here,
in
okay?
I don't
Corinthians
need, I don't
first.
want, if I was
Then he go to
finished, I
Galatians.
would have stopped. So now
No,
let me go to
No,
Galatians.
you're gonna pause like I just said, and you're gonna let him address what you said in Corinthians, and then go to Galatians, bro. Slow
No,
down. Come
because
on now.
The Galatians
Let's
goes
just keep
with
it moderate. Come on now.
I can't let that
let's not,
happen
yeah,
No,
because if
Sabio,
I
let's,
let that happen,
bro.
it's
Sabio,
going to
let's not
If you
make
jump
this
to
into,
another verse, you're gonna take the focus off, bro. So
no, I'm
if you
not,
will,
because it goes
bro,
along with this.
bro, listen to what I'm saying, bro. If you jump to
Bro,
another verse, it's gonna take the focus off.
no,
So let
it
him,
goes along
bro.
with this.
Why are you the only one I'm having this issue with, bro? Let him address what you're saying in Corinthians, and then you can go to Galatians, bro. Calm down. Go ahead, Robert.
Bring it back up again.
yeah,
All right.
okay.
So
Yeah,
bring it
let's
back.
not make this into a filibuster. It's a,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, this is really, first of all, Paul never said he made himself into a sinner or a liar. That's nowhere in this passage at all. And it's not implied. Now, what he's saying is something very simple, and that is to be able to relate to people on their own terms so that, so that they can understand where you're coming from and communicate the gospel in terms that they understand. So it's just like, I do that myself. I mean, if I'm in a professional environment, I relate one way. If I'm in the chat, I relate in a way that's, more relatable there. That's really all it's saying.
Okay, cool. So
Now I
you
go to Galatians, baby. Go ahead.
so no, because okay, and then I'm gonna go to Galatians because I'm gonna go to Galatians now because in Galatians he says you're neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free. So now to come back in what you just said, because what you just said was a simplified and it was a nice version. I like that, but that is not what Paul is saying.
That is what he's saying.
Yes, it is.
That is what he's saying.
Yes, it is. Okay, now,
No, stop.
No,
Because
that's what he's saying, my friend.
Come on, you come on, man. Please, we're having a conversation. And when people interrupt me, that's why I'll be like, no. So
Really?
so Paul, when he distinctly said that I am that I might gain them that are under the law, to them that are without the law, I became without the law. To the weak, I became as weak, that I might gain them, that I might gain all men. So what he means is that I will do whatever I had to do. If I had to do what? Say, because now this goes back to Romans. Because remember, in Romans 8, what is Paul having? What does Paul say we're having in Romans 8? A battle between the spirit and the flesh.
All right. I don't have a lot more time, but
and if he we need to have a deeper discussion on this on another time.
Okay, but here there's some basic things that need to be understood really about context of the the verses that you're reading.
I know this
in First Corinthians.
Come on, bro. Let him speak, bro.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
I wasn't finished, and see that was his way of getting in by saying we need to have a deeper conversation.
He said that he didn't listen, bro. Bro, you're not listening. You're not listening, bro. He said that he don't have that much time to stay. So
Exactly.
that's why he said, "Come on, bro. Ain't
That's
nobody gonna cut you off, bro. Stop misrepresenting people, bro." He,
but I
he
was
said
speaking on
he
Romans
said that he
8.
don't have that much time to stay, so he was gonna wrap up what you were saying and in what he was saying, and you just agreed that y'all need to have a
I was,
extensive conversation on this later on. So let's just agree to that, my brother. He not trying to shun you, bro.
yeah. So can we agree to another conversation so we can just get up out of here? I would like to do this. I would like
Let me
to
just
share, I would
answer.
like
Let
to
me
share
just
some
answer your question,
things
Eusebio.
where
All
you're
right,
totally
okay. There's two things. First of all, and these are completely different contexts. What Paul is talking about in Galatians is a believer's place in Christ. In Jesus Christ, in God's sight, there is no Jew nor there's no slave nor free, no Jew nor Gentile, etc. Right? In First Corinthians, it's talking about how he's willing, how he tries to relate to people on their own terms so that everyone can understand the gospel and accept it. That's really it. And that's
Same thing I do. Same
okay.
thing I when I'm at church,
Yeah.
I'm professional. When I'm in the hood, I'm hood. That's all Paul saying in Corinthians. Go ahead,
okay,
brother.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if we have another question, if we have another question, we can do that.
Yeah, I want
This got
to
a
see
few
you.
more minutes.
I
So
want to
probably got
know.
about 5
I
or 10
want to
more
know
minutes.
if we can have a deeper
Okay.
conversation on this.
Okay, well, so y'all, we'll see in the future if we can set up a show between y'all two on the subject of Paul, and we'll keep the listening audience updated, and we'll just play it by ear until then. Nageti, since you are in here, my brother, do you have a question now, or do you have a comment that you want to make? Brother Robert Ash, don't have too long left to get on off here.
Yeah, I had a brief conversation with my brother earlier. Kudos to you, bro. But in a separate discussion I had, there's this concept about God being light. Of course, I don't believe that God is physical light, but there are some out there who postulate that concept. And from my understanding, it seemed like the person didn't take it a step forward into properly identifying types and shadows. And I heard you speak on it a little earlier. Could you elaborate a little bit more on types and shadows, if you don't mind, specifically in the concept of light and God?
Okay.
Before you do, Robert, I
Yeah.
just want to ask you, Nageti, based off of those, I know who you're talking about. I'm not gonna say no names, but based off of those brothers that do put that forward that God is light, are you willing to have a conversation or discussion with one of them on a future show?
I have no problems with it.
All right, go ahead, brother Robert.
Okay. The verse that is usually quoted or partially quoted here is 1 John 1:5. That says that God is light, right? Those are three words in there. The actual passage says, this then is the message we have heard, we declare unto you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from all sin. So when the Bible says, okay, and each person, they can, everyone's entitled to believe what they wish about God or not, clearly. But from the Bible's perspective, God being light is a moral statement, right? That he's morally light, truth, pure, goodness. There's no moral darkness in him at all, right? And if we have fellowship with and walk in darkness, that's moral darkness, because we're not walking in. We can walk in darkness and be in bright sunlight. Walk in moral darkness and be bright sunlight. So that's really where the Bible's perspective is on God being light. Now, to the credit of that position, physical light is represented, is seen in the Bible, is presented, not represented, but presented in the Bible as being a physical manifestation of God's goodness and purity. So, for instance, in the new heaven and the new earth, there'll be no need for a sun or a moon. There'll be no night there. The light of God will light the entire universe in a physically tangible way. This actual verse, though, really is referring to God's moral character of being pure and without any sin or darkness whatsoever. Now, just in parallel, from a physical standpoint, light is, as has been pointed out, before by the proponents of this position, is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And one thing that I would just ask these brothers and sisters to think about is to say that is to just point out that actually electromagnetism is one of 4 physical forces, right? So in physics, there's electromagnetism, there's the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and the gravitational force, right? And all of those are different forces. So if God is light, which is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, that's limiting God to one of those 4 forces. And from a biblical perspective, that could not be God, because God created all things, all those forces and everything that they're comprised of. But
all right.
Yeah.
Was that it, Robert Ash, on that particular subject?
Yeah, that was my son coming. I got it reminded me it's bedtime.
Okay.
So I
Well,
really
gonna
enjoyed,
get up
it was a blessing talking to everyone. Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate everyone that took the time, to listen and to engage. It's really, there's a lot of other things you could be doing with your time. So the fact that you think enough, to have any kind of engagement, with me is just really, it's a privilege, and I thank you.
As y'all can see, man, Brother Robert Ash really appreciates y'all, man. I want to appreciate Google Scholar for coming on, asking his questions, as well as you, Nagedi, Anoop Coctorot, Outside the Cube. If it's any names I forgot, please forgive me, man. My brother Robert Ash has to go. We've been out here for probably about 2 hours plus, so yeah, it is time to go. I just want to say, y'all already know me. I am nobody. I always trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody, and that is Jesus the Christ. That has been my brother, Pastor Robert Ash, giving y'all his testimony, giving y'all his background, even answering some of the hard-hitting questions that he had to go through tonight. This is Paradigm Shift TV 314. We appreciate y'all for tuning in, and we'll kick y'all in the next one. That's peace. Oh yeah, man. Say, Nagedi, take yourself off mute, my brother.
Hey, what's going on, bro? What's going on?
I seen that conversation you and Robert was having with some of the dudes earlier, man. So I just want to say that.
Say that again.
I just want to say, I seen that conversation you and Robert Ash was having earlier about the brothers in NAGA, however you say it, talking about that God is light, man. We may need to do a tag team discussion one day, you and Robert Ash together against 2 of the brothers from they clique, and see how it go.
Yeah, man. Let me tell you. For the last, I'm actually being mentored on my position. So at work on Wednesdays, my mentor comes in. So my free time is like gone.
Right. No, I get it, man. Like I say, it had to be sometime in the future. We'll just work around your schedule. Everybody else have free time on different days, so we'll just see whatever day you do got free time, and we'll just go from there. Brother Robert Ash, if you have to go, bro, I don't want to hold you no longer, my brother.
Okay. Here he is. Yeah,
oh,
so I gotta...
hey. Oh,
go ahead,
I don't want to hold you. But that the earlier conversation on the heathen, the heathen discussion.
Oh yeah. I thought you were... Hey,
Okay,
I think you use the right
sorry.
word.
I'm a Jacobus. He can tell you I could be a little bit pickish.
Mm-hmm.
And them guys, especially Savior, you see how he is.
Oh yeah.
I think we still alive, y'all. So
that's cool. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not saying nothing different that I don't say. I didn't say in the group.
Amen.
So
Amen.
Okay. Okay. So I do have to go, brothers, and It's been great. And always look forward to fellowship. And God bless both of you. Okay.
God bless you too, bro.
Catch you later. All right. Bye.
All right.
I often say we still alive if you want to continue, or if you want to go and hit each other up in the chat. It's up to you. I'm about that life too. So,
I'm pulling up to the house, but I'll say this. Sabio, Eusebio, is that how you say his name?
yeah, Sabio.
Like I want to, and I'm if we live or not, I want to have a discussion with you on Paul. I honestly feel like it'll make a good conversation.
Yeah.
Because for some reason I feel like he's on the opposite side of the spectrum with Paul, because Paul, that's my dude. You know what I'm
You
saying?
seen what he just did tonight, bro. You seen how he just butchered them scriptures tonight.
Yeah, man. And like, I don't know. The way I found out about Paul is because I had to deal with black Hebrew
Is me too.
Israelites.
Me too.
Right. And they hate Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I, learned about Paul so deeply. So yeah, I think it'll make a good discussion. And like I said, I'm being mentored on my job, and my mentor has been there on my Wednesday nights while I'm on second shift. I'm not for sure how long that's gonna last, but in the meantime, I'll be preparing myself for that discussion, and I'm sure he'll take it up.
Oh yeah. Sabia want to smoke. So you said you be having free time on Wednesdays, like after after work.
Wednesdays after 7:00, I'm usually good, but with my mentor here, I'm not sure how long he's going to be here, but he's talking like maybe another week or two, and then he's going to.
They try to do it Wednesday coming up then. Since we kind of for sure that you probably have that one. I mean, have free time then. You want to do it then?
I could probably get. You know what? I can make it. I'll make an hour. I'll make an hour.
Yeah. It's just a conversation. Yeah. It ain't no debating, man. Just conversation. So,
I give it a good hour, and we can do that Wednesday.
All right.
For sure.
Okay. Sabio, I know you're still listening, bro. You hear that, my brother? You've been asking for a Christian to take you up on Paul for like the last 3 weeks. You got one. He said he got an hour out of his day on this Wednesday coming up, my brother. So we're gonna set it up for Wednesday. I'm not for sure if I'm gonna be the moderator or not, but y'all will have that conversation this Wednesday if don't nothing change. So I'm cool with that, my brother.
All right. Well, God bless, and I'm out.
God bless you, bro. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming in, my bro.
Hey, no problem.
Appreciate you. All right. Hey, everybody. That's the show. Brother Robert Ash, his interview, his testimony. I really appreciate everybody that's in the chat. If y'all can, hit that like button for us. Share the video. For those of you who are in the chat that haven't came on the show yet, don't be scared, man. Hit that link. Come ask your question. You can get interviewed too. Let us know about you. Let us know your walk of life. Let us know your worldview, man. This is Paradigm Shift TV. We're trying to hear from all paradigms, man. You know what I'm saying? And if it's something not on the up and up about your worldview, then we're trying to see if we can shift your paradigm, man. It ain't just about bashing the Bible over here. We're willing to challenge anybody's worldview and whatever worldview you're coming from. So don't be afraid, man. If you got enough sense to talk trash in the chat or talk trash in the back chat in the paradigm shift messenger groups and all that, hey, stand on your square, stand on your ground, stand on your position. Come up here and get challenged, man. We appreciate all y'all. We love all y'all. Well, I love all y'all. I don't know about everybody else, but y'all know I'm a Christian, so I gotta love everybody, or I'm not following Christ. So I love all y'all, man. We appreciate y'all, man. And again, this has been another episode of Paradigm Shift TV 314. We'll catch y'all in the next one, man. And that's peace.